Hey, it's David Baer. Welcome to the fifth and final video in our Mindset Masterclass. And thanks for being with me on this journey. I know it's been a lot of information. It's been a crash course in how to have a powerful living experience and a real conversation about transformation. So I'm going to give you a quick recap on where we're at. And we're going to move into sort of the final distinction and a practice that you can use to step powerfully into the next level of your life. So what we've talked about so far is that this conversation about mindset is really a conversation about brain change, isn't it? It's about changing the neural networks of our brain so that we can change the patterns of thinking, so that we can enroll this thing that we're calling a goal-achieving machine, our brain, into powerfully assisting us in every aspect of our life. And the problem in our lives and in what we're trying to create, although there's no judgment around it, are these things called limiting beliefs. These things that we've carried with us into our adult lives that were really just meanings that we gave experiences when we were younger, and we've been living this same meaning over and over and over and over and over again, right? This meaning, this I'm not good enough, this I'm not as far along as I should be, this, money's hard to make. None of these things are necessarily true, and we actually have the capacity to create new truths for ourselves through the power of decision. By realizing that these limiting beliefs are shaping our lives, but the beliefs are decisions, and we have the ability, we can give ourselves permission to make new decisions at any point in time. And when you do make a new decision, something really extraordinary happens. You create an image of this future that you're trying to create, and now all of a sudden the brain has new instructions, and on every level it's trying to bring that into reality. So you start having thoughts and ideas related to bringing this image or this idea, this relationship, this amount of money, this business, this impact into the world. We start to perceive the world differently. So we see things that were always there that we just weren't paying attention to because we were living in a limiting belief. And again, it's a larger conversation, but we create manufactured coincidence in our life so that not only are we fully aligned with producing this outcome that we want, but life is fully aligned and co-creating it with us. And so as part of that conversation, I wanted to give you some tools to notice when these limiting beliefs are driving your moment by moment lives. And we brought into a distinction, which is that there's two states of being, right? There's beautiful states of being and suffering states of being. And when you've bought into the lie of a limiting belief, when you're unconsciously indulging and engaging with this pattern of thinking that is a limiting belief and not aligned with what you want to create, you actually move into suffering, right? You become stressed, you become anxious, you become overwhelmed, you become jealous, and you have no power there. So all of our power is in a beautiful state of being, and so suffering is the problem, just like limiting beliefs are the problem, right? And in order for us to create a change or create transformation in our lives, just like we made new decisions, we're also going to learn how to move back into a beautiful state of being, okay? I know it's a mouthful, but I think it's clear and straightforward, and it's a framework for transformation. And so I'm just so honored to actually be able to be here and share this with you. So let's talk about what do we do? What do we do when we've noticed all of a sudden that we've moved into a suffering state? Well, first is we acknowledge the fact that we've moved into a suffering state. There's a self-awareness to the fact that I am stressed, I am angry, I am overwhelmed, I am depressed, right? Those are all suffering states of being. So number one is I acknowledge that I'm in a suffering state, okay? Number two, I also acknowledge, and we talked about this in the last video, that the suffering I'm experiencing is separate from the experience, right? The experience is not causing me my suffering. Something else is causing me my suffering, and that's the third piece of this formula that we're putting together, which is the suffering that I'm experiencing is caused by one thing and one thing only, which is my own thinking. My own thinking is producing the stress, it's producing the anxiety, it's producing the overwhelm. And so what we do at that point is we need to go and take a look at this thinking, don't we? I mean, if this thinking is the only cause of our suffering, which is the thing that's preventing us from creating powerfully in our lives and from living in a beautiful state of being, we should go inquire around this thinking. So the next step is to observe your thinking. So what is it that I'm thinking right now? Well, I'm thinking that he or she shouldn't have done that. I'm thinking that it's never going to work out for me. I'm thinking that I should have done things differently than the way I did them. I'm afraid that I don't know what's going to happen next, and I'm worried about whether or not this decision is the right decision or that decision is the right decision, right? Isn't this sort of the day-to-day pattern of thinking that holds us back and kind of keeps us stuck in the suffering of life? So we have to notice this thinking, that I'm worried that things might go wrong, that I'm worried that people may not like me, that I'm afraid that I might not complete everything in time, and therefore I will fail, it will fail, and I will be a failure. We have to spend some time with the thinking. And I'm going to share with you sort of the penultimate distinction that sits on top of all of this. And again, I'm not asking you to believe me, I'm asking you to try it on. I'm asking you to play around with what you've been learning in this masterclass. This is just the tip of the iceberg of a very powerful transformative methodology. But what I would suggest to you is that whenever you're thinking something and it's causing you suffering, whatever it is that you're thinking is not true. We call it unintelligent thinking. So what's actually happening is that there are thoughts that are occurring for you. Go back to video 1, your thoughts are not your thoughts. There are thoughts that are occurring for you that are not in alignment with the truth of reality, right? The truth that life is always working for you, that there is no such thing as failure, that there is no right or wrong decision, right? That you will attract all of the people that you need to attract who will love you and embrace you and support you, that you need to in order to have the type of life that you want, right? That you will meet the man or woman of your dreams. You don't know how, you don't know when, but it's going to happen soon. That money is easy to make, that money flows to you, that there's always enough time, that the universe would never give you an idea, that it also didn't give you the time and the resources to actually execute on, right? All of these are empowering beliefs, and they're the truth. So when we unconsciously entangle ourselves with thoughts that are not in alignment with the truth of life itself, that's actually the cause of suffering, right? We've entangled ourselves with a lie. And so everything is energy. So we've moved out of energetic alignment with the truth of life, and that is actually why we move into stress. It's why we move into anxiety. It's why we move into overwhelm. It's why we move into depression and feeling not good about ourselves. We've bought into a lie. So the opportunity for us is to take this thinking and become clear on it, and to know that the thinking is not true, to know that it is what we call unintelligent thinking, and to spend some time with it to see how it is unintelligent, to truly see that it's not true. And I'll give you a quick example. A young man who we work with is a successful influencer. He's a founder, he's an entrepreneur, he runs a multiple seven-figure business, and he was invited to a dinner with other influencers. So he's at this dinner and he starts to move into suffering. He called me the next day. He said, Dave, listen, I understand the framework. I moved into suffering. I knew that the only cause of my suffering was my own thinking. I looked at the thinking, and the thinking that I found was that I don't belong here, right? There's this successful person, this influential person, this other influential person. Why am I here? I don't belong here. He said, so I realized that this thinking of I don't belong here was causing me my suffering. He said, I also know that if it's causing me suffering, it's not true. It's unintelligent thinking. And I also remember what you taught me, that if it's not true that I don't belong here, then it must be true that I do belong here. He said, but I couldn't see that that was true. I really felt like I didn't belong. Now, this is why coaching is so powerful, because I know this young man. I know what his beliefs are. I know that he has a spiritual faith. And so I asked him, I said, well, what do you believe about God? He goes, well, I believe in a God. And I said, and by the way, you don't have to believe in a God. This is not a God conversation. It just happens to be that if you believe that there is a mechanic or a function to life around you that is always supporting you, it's a lot easier to see the lie in the thinking, okay? But for him, he said, well, I said, do you believe that God is all powerful, all present, all knowing? He said, absolutely. And I said, then how on Saturday night did he screw up and put you in the wrong place? And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, you're telling me that you didn't belong there. So how did this intelligence that is running the universe put you in the wrong place? And he looked at me and he said, oh my God. I said, what? What'd you get? He goes, I see so clearly the unintelligent thinking in the idea that I don't belong, because I belong everywhere that I am, right? And this is why what I've been teaching you is real transformation. This young man will never unsee that, right? Every time he experiences I don't belong, he'll immediately be able to connect with his new truth, which is, I belong everywhere that I am. And so you think about how that's going to contribute to him stepping powerfully into his life, because he's no longer going to be haunted and controlled by I don't belong here. And he's going to be no longer feeding these images of I don't belong here to his brain, his goal-achieving machine, and he's going to be no longer wasting time and suffering around I don't belong here. He had permanent transformation in the way that he thinks by seeing that the thinking that was causing his suffering was unintelligent. So let me be clear here. It's great to become aware of the thinking that is the limiting belief or the untrue thinking, but you don't actually free yourself from it until you spend enough time with it and you question it enough to see that it's truly unintelligent. And when you do that, you immediately move back into a beautiful state and you reconnect with your personal power. So, what I'd like you to do is to comment below, and we've been on this journey together. So in video 1 and video 2, you identified the limiting belief, the pattern of thinking, the unintelligent thinking that's been taking place for you. In video 3, you learned that beliefs are decisions, and you can just make a new decision. You can think whatever you want about anything. And what's so fascinating about that is that when you do, you create an image and it becomes your reality. And now here in video 5, what we're suggesting is that anytime you've moved into a suffering state and disconnected from your personal power, the only cause of it is your own thinking, and the quality of that thinking is it's not true. And the way back to your personal power is to actually see the lie in the thinking that's taking place. So what I'd like you to do is comment below and tell me about how it's not true what your limiting belief was. In other words, what evidence do you have for the fact that the opposite of that is true? If you've been feeling like there's not enough time, how is it true that there's an abundance of time for you? If you've been feeling like it's never going to work out for you, how is it absolutely true that it's going to work out for you? If you believe that you're not good enough, what evidence do you have for the fact that you're a powerful creator who's on this extraordinary journey of developing more skills and building more relationships, and that life is an incredible experience for you and that you are good enough, right? So help me understand below, because I'm going to be checking these comments and I want to make sure that you're following along in this journey. Help me understand how the pattern of thinking that has been holding you back is absolutely untrue, and what evidence do you have for the fact that just the opposite is true? So I want to thank you for investing your time in these 5 videos with me. I know there are a lot of other things you could be doing, and I'm excited about you in your future because I know that someone like you who chooses to invest their time in themselves by understanding personal development at a whole new level is going to be doing extraordinary things in the world. It's an honor to be with you. I appreciate everything that Founders is doing, and I hope to see you in another masterclass soon. Be blessed.